Types of respiration. There are two types of respiration that takes place in a cell. These are namely aerobic respiration and anaerobic respiration. The first one requires the presence of oxygen. So aerobic means in the presence of oxygen and anaerobic means without oxygen. So we'll start by looking at aerobic respiration. This is the breakdown of food substrate in the presence of oxygen to release energy, carbon dioxide, and water. Now this process can be summarized by the following equation, where we have glucose molecule reacting with oxygen in the presence of respiratory enzymes to give carbon dioxide, water, and energy. This is chemical energy that is used to synthesize the ATP molecules. During aerobic respiration, the glucose or any other substrate is completely broken down to release a total of 2,880 kilojoules of energy per 1 mole. Mole is a standard quantity of a reacting substance, so per 1 mole of glucose. This is a large amount of energy that if released all at once, the cell would burn and be damaged. Thus, this energy is released in stages so that it can be used efficiently or be stored without damaging the cell. Each stage of the many reactions involved is catalyzed by a specific enzyme. So this reaction here actually involves a series of steps, and each step being catalyzed by a specific enzyme. These many steps can be summarized into two phases. That is, aerobic respiration can be summarized into two phases or stages. Namely, one is glycolysis, that is the first stage. The second one is Krebs cycle, or also known as the citric acid cycle. Glycolysis is the first stage. The term glycolysis refers to the breaking down of glucose, which has 6 carbon atoms. So it has 6 carbon, is broken into 2, each of which will have 3 carbon atoms. So the 6 carbon atom molecule, that is glucose, is split into 2 smaller molecules, each having 3 carbon atoms. Glycolysis occurs in the cytoplasm, and it involves these 2 steps. First is phosphorylation, and then there is the dehydrogenation, or also known as oxidation. In the first step, that is phosphorylation, 2 phosphate molecules from ATP are added to 1 glucose molecule in order to activate it. So here we have 2 ATP molecules added to glucose. So the phosphate is derived from the 2 ATPs, and what is given out are 2 ADP. Remember the structure of an ATP adenosine attached to 3 phosphate molecules. Then this last phosphate molecule is attached to the glucose, so that what is left is adenosine diphosphate. So 2 phosphate molecules are attached to make the phosphorylated 6-carbon sugar. This phosphorylated sugar is unstable and splits into 2 molecules, each having 3 carbon atoms. So each will be phosphorylated, but it will have half the number of carbon atoms as the original sugar molecule. So this is the phosphorylation process. Addition of a phosphate from ATP molecules to activate the glucose. Then the glucose splits into 2 3-carbon sugar. The next step in glycolysis is the dehydrogenation. This is a process here of the dehydrogenation. Here. This one was glycolysis up to the split. Then dehydrogenation. This involves the loss of hydrogen atoms from each of these molecules. Each of the 3-carbon molecule loses 2 hydrogen atoms to become pyruvic acid. This dehydrogenation process releases energy, which is used to form 2 ATP molecules. So during this dehydrogenation, 2 ATP molecules are released, that is, energy is released in the form of 2 ATP molecules from one 3-carbon sugar, and also from the other one, you're going to have 2 ATP molecules released. So in total, 4 ATP molecules will be released during the dehydrogenation. During the phosphorylation, 2 ATP molecules were used. So in total, during glycolysis, we see that 2 ATP molecules are released from one molecule of glucose. During phosphorylation, 2 ATP molecules were consumed, and then during dehydrogenation, 2 ATP molecules are released from each of the 3-carbon sugar, making a total of 4. So the net result is that 2 ATP molecules are released. And the site of this glycolysis is in the cytoplasm of the cell. The second part of aerobic respiration is known as the Krebs cycle. Now, the fate of the pyruvic acid produced during the glycolysis will depend on whether oxygen is available or not. If oxygen is present, the pyruvic acid enters the mitochondrion, where it will be completely oxidized into carbon 4 oxide and water, releasing more energy through a series of reactions known as the Krebs cycle. So in the Krebs cycle, each one of the pyruvic acid, remember there are 2 produced, so each one of them enters the matrix of the mitochondrion, where it is converted into a 2-carbon acetyl group through the loss of a carbon in the form of carbon 4 oxide. So this process involves the loss of carbon 4 oxide. So remember, the pyruvic acid has 3 carbon atoms. So when one is lost, only 2 are left. This process of removing carbon produces energy. And this energy is used to form 3 ATP molecules. So from one pyruvic acid, during its conversion into a 2-carbon acetyl group, 3 ATP molecules are released. The acetyl group then combines with a coenzyme A. Combines with the coenzyme A to form the acetyl coenzyme A. The acetyl coenzyme A then enters the Krebs cycle, but this will only happen if oxygen is available. The activities of the Krebs cycle requires the presence of oxygen. So the acetyl coenzyme A enters the Krebs cycle together with oxygen. It undergoes a series of reactions which will release carbon 4 oxide, water, and energy in the form of ATP molecules. So in total, the amount of energy released will be enough to release or to manufacture 15 molecules of ATP. So 15 are going to be released from the Krebs cycle. Remember, from the conversion of pyruvic acid into acetyl group, 3 ATP molecules were released. So in total, from the Krebs cycle, each pyruvic acid yields 18. 3 from the conversion of pyruvic acid into acetyl group, and then the 15 from the Krebs cycle. Thus, you find that from the 2 pyruvic acid molecules, because there are 2 that are released from each glucose, we get a total of 36 in the Krebs cycle. Now, if you add 36 to the 2 that were produced during glycolysis, then you get a total of 38 ATP molecules produced at the end of aerobic respiration of 1 molecule of glucose. 38 ATP molecules are released during aerobic respiration of glucose. Now, the second type of respiration is known as anaerobic. This, as mentioned, does not require oxygen. Anaerobic respiration is the breakdown of food substances in the absence of oxygen. It takes place in the cytoplasm. Now, apart from the energy released in the form of ATP, the other products depend on whether the reaction takes place in a plant or animal cell. In plant cells, apart from the energy in the form of ATP, the other products are carbon dioxide and ethanol. This process is called alcoholic fermentation, known as alcoholic fermentation, because one of the products is alcohol, that is ethanol. Apart from plants, alcoholic fermentation also occurs in fungi such as yeast. Now, anaerobic respiration in animal cells, on the other hand, produces lactic acid and energy. And it takes place when tissues such as muscles respire anaerobically. That is, when the supply of oxygen is less than the demand, then there is anaerobic respiration taking place in animal cells, and lactic acid is one of the products. Now, you note that in anaerobic respiration, the energy released comes from the glycolysis process alone. There is no Krebs cycle. Thus, it is the resulting pyruvic acid which is converted further to either ethanol and carbon dioxide in plants or lactic acid in animals. That is, after the splitting of glucose into pyruvic acid, if there is no oxygen, then the pyruvic acid is converted further to ethanol and carbon dioxide in plants, and in animals it is converted into lactic acid. Anaerobic respiration occurs in animals during strenuous activities in the skeletal muscles, for example, when running. Nerve cells are incapable of anaerobic respiration. This is because lactic acid is toxic, and its accumulation in the body results in fatigue and muscle cramps. Muscle cells can tolerate to some extent lactic acid, but other cells like the nerve cells are too sensitive and they get destroyed by the lactic acid. Some bacteria also carry out anaerobic respiration to produce lactic acid, which, for example, does affect the taste of certain dairy products like milk.